Hi, everybody. Welcome back to Painting with Daniel. I'm your host, Daniel Tate from the Longview Public Library. In this week's episode, we are going to do another pet portrait, this time of a kitty cat. As always, check the video description below to get the image that I'll be working from. Let's get started. Here is the cat picture that we are going to use, and I'd like to give a special thanks to Ginny for providing this picture. This is Fowl, the kitty cat, and this is what we will use to make our cat painting. And this is different than our dog painting, not only because it's a cat, but this is close up on our kitty cat here, and so we're just getting details, and this is going to be a lot of texture, and we will use the pencil again and draw it in. Everything similar to the process before that we used with Caesar the dog, but this should be a nice change of pace and challenge to do a cat portrait where we're zoomed in like this. And one other difference is that this image is a square, as you can see, and I've very lightly drawn in lines here to help me make more of a square image. You can change that as you go. You could paint on this whole vertical piece. This is another 5x7 piece of paper, but I've decided just to help me and kind of crop it with these lines, so I am going to be painting within a square. And same as before, we will draw in big shapes, try to break this down. This is almost like a spiral through here, but draw in that head shape, kind of an oval, and then another oval here, almost kind of a bean shape. And then once we get those big shapes in, we can start to zero in with those details. Draw lightly at first, and then you can always mark over with darker lines with your pencil. But let's get started and draw Fowl the kitty cat. And that sketch is enough to get us started. A lot of this painting is going to be created with the layers again and building up texture with pencil brush or pencil marks, and then using brush strokes to try and create some of the way that the fur kind of dances around the image. But it'll just be brought up with layers. We just needed to be able to guide where we're going with those marks. And with cats, it's all about patterning in the fur. And with this in here, we can start on the first layer. Okay, we are ready to put in our first layer now. And just like always, we're going to identify the lightest colors here. So a lot of that is this kind of off-white, very light brown in the face here, and then those more kind of peachy browns around the outside here. So we will kind of float those in. We're not going to worry about any of these darks. We don't have to worry about patterning either, the stripes, the kitty cat. We just want to start popping in these lighter colors here. Those are going to be our highlights. So we want them pretty much everywhere. They're going to be lighter here, and it looks like lighter here. So we're just identifying where these different lighter areas are, and then we're going to start putting those in our painting. Okay, and now we have addressed the entire image here. I got a little outside that square I created. That's fine. As soon as we start introducing more of the darks in the cat here, that's not going to matter at all. So if you do decide to go with the square and you paint outside of those lines, it's not a big deal. And I played around with getting some different peachy, white, brown colors in here. But really that's going to come in as we build up more layers in here. You can use blues or greens just very subtly in these areas where it's a cooler light color. You can see it's really a lot warmer in the coloration here, and then it's cooler here. So really light blues, greens, just a touch of that can help cool those areas off. Let's let this dry, and then we will continue in adding especially some of these warm colors in here and maybe cooling off those areas. So we're really still just playing with the light colors on our cat. We are ready to paint again. This is all dry, and it looks vaguely like someone spilled maybe a little bit of coffee on there. So let's keep going. Sometimes with watercolor, you just never know what it's going to look like when it dries, but that's part of the fun. And we're going to keep building on this layer. I'm going to add some warmer kind of browns and oranges, especially in the face here. That's where the eye is closed. And then maybe kind of cool it off a little bit. Right here, this is the paw, and it looks like it gets cooler, kind of light brown, but more of almost a blue light brown, and then it's much more orangey around here, and then cool there. So let's keep building that up. We're gonna start leaving kind of this fluff under the chin. We're gonna start leaving that alone more, because that is closer to the white of the paper, or closer to this layer. So let's add another layer here, bringing in warm, light oranges and maybe some kind of light blue browns in there. We're ready to let that dry now, and you can see I added these oranges, kind of orange browns, left it alone where it's that lighter, almost white fur on there. And we're just building those layers up. This kind of pale blue or pale green color, that's going to be the areas that are cooler on the cat, so they're not as warm. If I cover that up, you can see it's cooler in areas like this, and it's warmer in areas like this. So we're creating that effect. One of the important things about painting, keeping your brush moving and addressing as much of the painting as you can each time, is that it helps keep harmony and unity in the image. So that way it's not these sections of different colors, and some sections look like you've worked on them much more than others. It helps build the whole image together, and it harmonizes it so that it's similar colors around, and that keeps the image looking like it was created
with effort everywhere, and it was addressed everywhere, and it looks more complete at the end. So that's why it's nice to get a dress all around here, everywhere there's warm, and doing it not necessarily quickly, but just going with it. And it's watercolor, so you want to get the paint on there. And we'll let this dry now, and then we'll start to add in some of these darker colors a little bit for the next layer, and then we'll probably draw as well. So we might draw a little bit first, start making some of the texture in the fur, and then paint, and then let that dry. Now that this is dry enough, for my next layer, I'm going to start drawing first, and I'm going to include some of these hairs that are on the fur that are kind of easier to see, the bigger areas, and following the direction they go. So when you look at this part, how there's fur that's kind of moving this direction, kind of in a circle around here, or a spiral, and then on the chin. So just picking out some of the bigger areas where it's very noticeable that there's fur going in different directions. So I'll include that in there. I might start to come in with these, they're almost dots here where the whiskers are. And you can draw in the whiskers if you want. That might be something that I do at the end. Kind of these bigger whiskers on here. But I really at least want to get the texture going, and you'll see as I draw how I start to build that up. And just like with Caesar the dog that we painted last time, it'll be layers of doing this. So we can draw and then paint some, and that's what I'll come in and start including some of these stripes here and building in some of these browns or almost blacks. So drawing, then building a layer, letting it dry, and then coming back. But for now, let's start drawing. All right, now let's allow this to dry, and we've built up a little bit of texture here with the pencil. We could go in even darker using a different kind of pencil, or just pressing harder, but we'll just continue to build this up. Started to add in some of these darker areas in here. Going in like where it's really dark right here, but we're just slowly going to boost those in. We can leave it nice and loose around these really bright white patches, and then towards the end as well, we will come in with a smaller brush and we can add some texture that way along with the pencil. Let's allow this to dry. Okay, we are dry enough to keep going. This time when I draw, I'm going to work with this 2B, not 2B, no, this is a 2B, 2B pencil, and this is going to be similar to just a number 2 pencil. It's going to be darker. These lines are pretty light. I want to start getting some darker lines in there to build up the texture in our kitty cat here. And then I'm also going to use a smaller brush and start creating some of this texture with the brush as well. So we're going to use the pencil to bring out more texture of the fur, and then also a smaller brush to create texture that way as well. And also start to make things darker. I may get this nose here. Start with pink, and then we can make it darker later on. And I might increase these oranges a little bit. We'll see, though. That might happen in the next section. But let's draw some more and then use a smaller brush to create the fur texture. All right, let's let this dry. We have some more darks coming in here. Starting to pick out, finding the nose and seeing some of these more orange spots are starting to come into focus more. So we will boost those, and we'll just continue to add with each layer, add a little more texture with the pencil marks. That 2B pencil really helped out, really increased the texture in there. We can see some of those lines better. But as we're moving forward, we're seeing where we need to start putting in more darks and orangey colors and creating more texture. So we'll let this dry, and then we will keep going. And I will continue to build up layers on this. One of the nice things about watercolor I want to mention is that because you have to paint and then wait and let it dry, it gives you an opportunity to step back and really look at the image you're painting from, or if you're doing a still life or something you're actually looking at, and compare it to what you're working on and see where you want to go with the colors, or adding darks in or details. So you can take that break to really examine what you're doing. So like here now I can see that it needs to be a little more orange brown, some of these areas. So I need to boost that up, and then of course I'll need to be going darker in these areas here. So I can start to compare it, maybe tone down the nose a little bit, and use this as a point where I can say, all right, where am I and what am I looking at, and where should I go from here? So with that said, I'm going to draw some more to add some more texture on here, and then I'm going to come in and boost these warm areas on the kitty cat, especially on the face and the paw right here and on the neck. now let's let this dry. And we've definitely boosted those orangey browns in here and added some nice texture. So for the next part, we will boost these darks in here and then maybe add a little more texture after that. But we are getting closer to the finish line on this one. So once we get some of those darks in, we'll be able to evaluate how much more that we need to add to it. All right. In this layer, we're going to boost darks that we see in the kitty cat here. And after we boost those darks, we'll reevaluate, see if we need to add any more touches with the pencil or paint anything in. But we're just going to look for areas that are dark and start to boost those. A lot of that will also be the stripes. We're going to find specific stripes here and implement those in our painting. So we're going to put those in. So any kind of stripe on here that we see on the kitty cat will go in painting. We can also boost things like these little dots and in the face here. I'm going to let this dry now, and I've boosted these darks a lot. I've added plenty of texture. I switched to this really small brush, and that helped me break up some of these patches of lighter colors, and also just to create some of this more subtle texture in there. I can come back in and draw a little more, and I may need to do that. But I want to let this dry, and I want to come back and look at it, take a little break, let things dry, and then revisit it and see what final touches I might want to do to it. But we are really getting close. It's really starting to resemble the image that we're working from, and starting to look like a real curled up, snuggly kitty cat. I think we are ready to finish this painting up. So for my final layer, I'm going to come in with the pencil again and create a little more texture on the top of the head here. It's a little darker in the image, so I'll use the pencil to create texture and make that a little bit darker. And I'll probably boost this dark here, this stripe, and maybe add some darks right here on this cheek. And then I may come in with a little more brown orange and just pop that in a little bit more around the entire kitty cat, just to kind of unify things a bit more, so that these orangey brown parts aren't only in certain spots and they appear in more of the image. So that's my plan to wrap this up, and then we should be all done. All right, I'm going to let this dry, and our kitty cat painting should be all finished.
Awesome job, everybody. Thanks for joining me today. Here is my finished The Mighty Fowl kitty cat painting. I hope you enjoyed this week's episode, and please join me again next week where we are going to do a watercolor painting of a sunset. This has been Painting with Daniel, and you have been painting with Daniel.